Here's to England, my home and my country. Though I left her all those years ago, I found my way back home. I was just a girl of 26 years old when I left the shores of England all alone. Though at 26 I should have had a husband and some children I could call my own. Instead I flew the nest without realizing all that I was leaving behind. 10 years on I finally appreciate the meaning of the blood and soil in this my homeland. England, your beauty lies beyond that all the eyes can see. You're deep within my very heart and my soul. You are a part of me, you're deep within our blood and soil. England, my country and my home. Here's to England, my country and my home. Here's to England, our home and our country. We are the children of these lands. We will rise and we will stand as a nation once again. We will once again be free to come together with our community. Free from all the guilt and shame that they have placed upon our name. They will not destroy or take away our history. We are opening our eyes, we are seeing through the lies they have laid before the people in their sight. But the truth is getting stronger. They can no longer keep us down because we're coming to unite. England, your beauty lies beyond that all the eyes can see. You're deep within our very hearts and our souls, and you are a part of us. You're deep within our blood and soil. England, our country and our home. Here's to England, our country and our home. Here's to England, our country and our home. Here's to England, our country and our home. Well, good evening, everyone. Hello and good evening. Let me just adjust my screen there. So thank you, everyone, for joining, whether you're watching live or you're watching the replay. I started writing hello to every one of you, and then I saw, oh, more people are coming. So Jojo, the Woodlander, Illuminatus, hello, each and every one of you, and to anyone on DLive as well. So it's a bit of a different feel tonight. And they have all been quite different. But this is a particularly meaningful topic because my friend, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, and I say friend, we've never met, but I do consider him my friend. I've had him on stream once, oh gosh, maybe over a year ago now, and I was kindly invited onto stream with him. And a few months ago, I think it was Hyreath that had shared a message, and we hadn't actually been in touch for a while, but I saw Hyreath shared a message on her Telegram channel to say a dear friend of ours had just lost his mother. And I instantly, I reached out, even though we hadn't been in touch for a while. And I desperately wanted to let this man know that I was thinking of him and I could feel his loss and his pain. And I wanted to let him know that even though I'm on the other side of the pond and we've never met, but he had love and support from England as well. Donald, if you just want to introduce yourself, who you are, a little bit about you, your channel. I've linked your channel into the description below. And then we'll go from there. So if you just want to introduce yourself.
First of all, thank you for having me back. And being around you always puts me in a good mood. So I'm very, very happy to be here. The topic tonight's a bit dour and heavy, but it's not going to turn it into a pity party for Donald Kent. We want to look at the subject of loss and death. And it's one of these things that is really important, but isn't talked about enough. But to back up a little bit, I think most people watching this channel would probably know who I am, Donald Kent, American Zarathustra on YouTube, and Amerizara on Twitter, Telegram. I've been involved in the white positive movement since around 2016. And my friend and co-host, Nullis Abnormocracy, we created a show called Imperium Art, which is a documentary asking questions of everybody in our sphere, not everyone, but big influencers in our sphere. What is the relationship between our movement and the arts? What should that be? Nullis created a fantastic essay on the Imperium Art. And then we use that as the kind of basis for an academic discussion on our arts. We're taking back our culture, taking back our destiny through the arts. Many of us in this sphere are obviously very keen on understanding and being involved in culture creation. And we recognize the importance of that, how that's foundational to white well-being across the world, among all white people. And so and then I'm also a musician and an artist. Excuse me. I've published with White People Press, White People Quarterly. I've done comics with Mark Brahman. I've done a number of various projects. Right now, I'm illustrating a book for White People Press that is a kind of a teen drama, which it's a new kind of thing for me, but I think it's an underserved demographic. They need more content from our side. And also, of course, people know me very much for my illustrations on the Bizarchives. And a lot of the writers in the Bizarchives, that's a kind of a pulp fiction, science fiction, short stories book with my illustrations in it. And I highly recommend check out thebizarchives.com. Again, it's taking back our narrative and our culture and our history through the arts. So there's very many things going on. I think that's it in a nutshell. Maybe I'll pass the mic back to you.
So I just needed to unmute myself. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. And I really appreciate you coming on because it's not an easy subject to talk about. But like I put in the description of this the stream, it's something that will affect us all. And I know some people in the chat have lost a parent. I haven't yet. So it's not something that is yet my experience. And I know, well, obviously it will be. And I just think it's important, we talk about, with you being an artist and a creator, and I'm also an artist and a creator, I was talking to my partner earlier, and we do see the world very differently, and we process the world differently, and we absorb things very differently, and then we alchemize that into our art.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being a creator, I don't want to speak for you, so if you don't feel this is correct, then please let me know. But I just think difficult subjects, even though they're difficult, it's not difficult to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when I asked you, and I asked with
hopefully it was a respectful invitation, but just to talk about your experience, because some people may have just gone through that recently. Some people haven't maybe experienced it. And I just thought, as a community, you know, we talk about the birth of a child, we talk about the christening of a child, we talk about when someone gets married, we talk about all these lovely, wonderful experiences. But as a community and as a people, we cannot avoid the loss of loved one. We cannot avoid death. And I know people say, oh, it's a bit of a morbid subject. Why do you want to talk about it?
Right.
Well, it's morbid, it's sad, it can be quite heavy, but it's, like I say, it's something we will all experience at one point in our lives. So, and I know I have got one of your videos queued up, which I'll play a bit later. But if you just want to share your experience and you know, your family member that passed away and how, and I just want to give you the microphone, really.
So to try to bring some context to this, when you asked me to come on the show and share my experience, it's been beyond intense, and it's every day, every hour, and I'm in a very hard place right now. So I'm trying to think, well, how can I turn that into something of value to our listeners, to our movement? What are the lessons that we can take from this? If I were to tell you, you know, every detail from the time my mother got sick to the time that I took her off life support, and then the aftermath of my family and the finances and the estate and on just my emotional state that I'm in to try to survive under extraordinary circumstances, I'm trying to think, well, that's a hell ride, and I don't want to drag everyone through the broken glass of that exactly. I'm trying to think, what can I give, what value can I give the audience? So I want to try to do that today in this show. I think to kind of tag on to the things you were just saying is that, yes, this is, you know, they say, don't talk about religion and politics. And no, those are the two most important things to talk about, you know. And as you were saying, we celebrate all these events in life, but we don't seem to have a means, or we don't have a culture of talking about death in a very realistic way and a healthy kind of way. And, you know, I don't have like a degree in such things or what have you, but my father was very, very ill for 4 years and died when I was 18. So early on in life, I was thrown into this meat grinder, if you will, that transformed me. And most people don't experience that at that age. And so I've had pretty much all of my life to kind of contemplate it, figure it out, work it out for myself. And then interestingly, my mother was a nurse who did home nursing to help people who were dying. And so that was around me for my whole life as well. And so through my own personal journey, through spiritual research and development, meditation, contemplation, et cetera, I've come to terms with death in, I believe, a very positive way. And my perspective on life is completely different than most people because of it. I honestly think this is, I really, you can say things, but you know, you don't actually experience them. But in my experience, I do feel very much that we're just visiting here, that this is kind of, your body in a sense is sort of like a submarine in the third dimension, and you descend into the physical plane, the material world, as a spirit to go through the suffering that is the technology of your evolution, your spiritual evolution. So I'm not going to kind of get into the mess of, like, you know, religion and opinions and differences and things. I'm just simply going to state my truths and let the audience do with it what they will. So how I see this is that, you know, life is eternal and this is temporary. And so being here and expecting anything to be something that we can attach ourselves to is absurd. And so this is the thing that we learn, that I've learned certainly through death, especially the moment of holding my mom as her last breath left her is extraordinarily traumatic. There's no words that can describe such an experience. I don't wish it on anyone, but it happened, and it's a part of my kind of karma, I guess, and the life that I'm living and these ideas that I'm processing. And it's, there's a great deal of agony involved in this, and loneliness, a kind of existential loneliness. But the way that I've processed this is that I've had a lot of, I'm going to be all over the place because this is a really difficult topic to kind of put in a linear fashion.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. So after my mom's death, there was a lot of paranormal activity in the house, and extraordinary things that I can tell you in detail what they are. But they kind of gave me that confirmation. There's always this sort of, well, how do you really know? And then when you have the paranormal experiences that I had, that is the confirmation that I have been communicating with her, and she's tried to communicate with me. And so I don't make a big deal about it because it's normal. That's essentially how I see it. That if you try to imagine that, first of all, if you do any kind of research on people who have died and come back to life, of which there's all kinds of information on the internet about such things, and you research and kind of collaborate that with other research in different fields of spiritual development, etc., it's not abnormal. And then also, I have the unique experience of living in Asia for 5 years, where every home has an altar to their ancestors. And a few times a month out in public, there are various rituals to say, like the Chinese, for example, they burn ghost money to send money to their dead ancestors. Things like that are extraordinary to me, how close the world of the living and the dead are. They're literally overlapping each other. And then if you say take a Western view of, say, quantum physics, where all is energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed, that gives you a new lens through which you can kind of see the relationship between us and our ancestors. And then, so like, and we haven't, I don't want to say this, getting back in touch kind of with our indigenous ways and our relationship to our ancestors, which emboldens us and enriches us. And we're not just this one person with this one name. We're actually kind of a link in a giant eternal chain through our ancestors, and that we can kind of connect with that and draw power from that. So I know I'm going all over the place with this topic, but this is again, hard to talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm also sort of trying to explain to people how I'm processing these things. So there is, even though I'm like right now, I've got it in control, but in my daily life, the wall between me and absolute collapse into tears is paper thin. If I'm driving and I see an ambulance, I'll just burst out crying, and there's all kinds of things around me, so like, if you want to discuss, say, the actual grief, the suffering itself, there's really no way to avoid it. You can't go around it, under or over it. You got to go through it, and you just have to do it. You have to cry, but you also have to rein it back in. Now, I have a son to take care of. I have the house and etc., all these things to take care of. So I can't be a mess. I can't fall to pieces. I gotta, tighten up, So, and this is another aspect that we'll all experience as well. So how do you do it? My mother, when my father died, literally did have a total collapse. She had 3 counselors, and she was on antidepressants, and she couldn't leave the house. And that went on for years. So people really do fall apart under circumstances like this. I can't, and I'm not kind of the type that would or will, but at the same time, if everybody knew the truth of what I'm dealing with, you'd think I would fall apart. Being abandoned by my family and the financial stress, and this is why I've kind of fallen out of the game for a while. Is that working 2 jobs. I'm totally exhausted and I'm totally depressed, and all, there's heavy boulders on my shoulder, and it's too much. So anyway, you've got to pull it back in. I'm getting back into music. I'm writing music again. These things are helping a lot of time with your friends, a lot of time with people that genuinely care for you and will suffer with you. You see, that's actually what real friendship is sharing the suffering, sharing the pain. And at that same time, there's a level of celebrating other things. But what that does to me, in a sense, is that it makes me realize that everyone is really just waiting to become a photograph. Everybody is just waiting to become a memory. And what is the legacy that we will leave behind? So this is my point, is that death, in a sense, it teaches us what life is. It is the true context of life. And so we live our lives in a kind of a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, pleasure to pleasure, fear to fear. We don't see the grand picture of how we fit into nature. And then, of course, other levels like civilization and our people and our time and our family and all these networks. We have influence over, these people and our time to certain degrees. So knowing that your life, in a sense, is a kind of a novel, how do you want it to end? When someone writes the book of your life, what will it do for future generations? What will you have left them? So it's a profound and important question for each one of us in this movement, because we're not just people in the chat. We're not just people surfing YouTube, or Twitter, what have you. We are people in this movement, and we're unique among all of whites that exist today. We've figured it out. We're taking chances. We have the courage to be involved in this. And so each one of us is a sort of a foot soldier in that regard, but also each one of us embodies the culture.
Yeah.
And so we, younger people kind of filing in behind us, they're exploring and enjoying and learning and growing from the things that we leave behind, in a sense, right? So we're kind of building the foundation of this house, that becomes the movement. So that's one aspect to look at this. Again, though, I feel like there's no linear quality to what I'm saying here. So I don't know if you want to,
No, there absolutely doesn't need to be. I've followed. I'm sure everyone else in the chat's followed, and it's just you're just laying the foundation with. So if you're on a roll, please continue. If not, I'll interject.
Well, there's just so much to talk about, but I feel like I'd like to talk about the paranormal experiences.
Yeah, because someone I don't know if you saw, someone else had just left a comment to you, and they said they had an experience where I think it was their father. Let me see if I can find it. I think their father died, and when they looked in the mirror, they saw him smiling. I'm just gonna see if I can bring that back.
Well, while you're looking,
yeah.
So a quick other note is 2 days ago, my mother's brother passed away, and I feel like I have an 80% reason to believe that it was from the vaccine. He is, of course, an older guy, but he was working and healthy and did not have health conditions that would lead to the way that he died. And then simultaneously, a lot of people are dying from that same thing who are triple vaxxed. And so, it's I have siblings that are in severe health issues right now. I kind of have to sort of navigate this carefully, but I'm expecting one of them to not make it through the year. So we're all really surrounded by death right now. This is, they talked about a dark winter is coming, and it's went into spring and summer, and it's going to continue. And you see these ludicrous stories in the news like, oh, solar flares are going to cause a spike in adult heart attacks.
Yeah. We've got gardening in England. Gardening is causing heart attacks.
Oh, gardening. Yeah. Like it always used to, right? Remember all those gardeners that suddenly had heart attacks? Yeah. Because being out in nature and being independent, making your own food, that's dangerous, right? But so there's a whole dimension to my personal experience connecting with the globalist agenda. And I hate that I'm the guy that this happened to, and that I'm the guy that has to come out and bring out, talk about these things. I assume most of your listeners are fairly plugged in and educated on the whole, pandemic and the genocide jab and all these other things. So I'm not going to go off on a big thing on that, but it's when it takes this giant abstract thing and then it puts it right in your lap. It puts it right in your house. That when you're walking around and you see the things that remind you of the persons who died from related to this situation, this global program, then it's no longer abstract. It's exquisitely real. And it's just kind of punching you in the face over and over and over and over. And you can't live like that. You have to, I don't want to say distract yourself, but you have to refocus on things that matter. And death is a kind of a thing that, any kind of death, not necessarily this specific depopulation program death, but it makes you say, what are the important things in my life? How am I spending my time? How am I wasting my time? And granted, I have a great deal of financial pressure on me now that is kind of crippling me artistically. And I can't do my content on YouTube, etc. But for now, and anyway, it's making me think, okay, I got to tighten the ship up here. I have to figure out, what matters, and so, and some of it's just mundane things, but other things is kind of about, well, who am I? And, we're all so caught up in our jobs and our, at pleasure seeking. It's this kind of back and forth between work and play and, our dreams and things, but we don't put enough time into our own cultivation until the truth comes and like breaks your legs and says, now you're going to sit down and you're going to suffer and you're going to think about who you are and how you're living. And then you have no choice but to just wallow in your own tears and grow up in a sense. And I mean, we grow up and then we grow up and then contextually you can keep growing and growing. So it's a pain in a sense is life's technology. The Buddha said life is suffering. There's a lot of depth and dimension to that meaning. And so, but again, it's about how you choose to suffer, what you make out of the suffering. So the paranormal stuff is, I've been debating whether or not I should talk about it at all, because I think that depending on where the listener's mind is and what experiences they've had, you're either going to think I'm crazy, or I'm lying, or I'm, it's a cope, that thing, or something other than, because some kind of people are not ready to break out of the materialist perspective of life, which is partly true, but not the whole truth. And so, we have this tendency to try to find confirmation bias in our perspective of reality and ourselves, etc. So some of the, and I should add to this as well. I hope, I'm sorry, I'm all over the map here.
Please, no need to apologize at all.
One of the aspects of how I'm coping with the deaths and the impending deaths and all these other pressures is that I've been, excuse me, embarking on a new meditation course. And I'm not ready to share the details of what that is exactly, but it's allowing me to develop psychic ability, which we all naturally have if we practice these esoteric technologies. And but in addition to that, obviously, it's about grounding myself, taking all this suffering that I'm completely submerged in, and turning it into something useful and beautiful, even. So the meditation has helped tremendously, but it also, what it does is it it's essentially like tuning a radio. You know, you're getting off of the static white noise, you know, that just confuses you, and then you're tuning into something pure, and then you simply listen, and then you know, once you attain that level, then these abilities automatically emerge because they're your natural abilities. It's just that you haven't allowed them to emerge, so that you haven't created the fertile ground on which they can grow and blossom. So one of the scariest or weirdest things that happened to me is just before my mother fell sick, I was out walking my dog. It was evening. It was sort of fairly well lit, not dark, not light. And I noticed a dark figure walking towards me up my street. And I had a kind of like a jolt, a sort of a shock. And I just looked away, thinking like, don't stare, that's rude, kind of thing. And then secondly, immediately my head is spinning like, okay, who is this person? Why are they on my street? Why are they walking towards me? I was a little scared, and I looked back, and then the person was not there anymore.
Wow.
And within the time that I had turned my head away and I was trying to evaluate this and my own fear, and to the time that I turned back, there's no way this person could have gone anywhere. And so it just disappeared, apparently. And it freaked me out a little bit. It was definitely like, don't ever tell anybody that this happened, because that's extremely weird, and no one will believe you. So put it in a little box, turn the key, and throw it away, you know. And then my mom got sick, and then there was this kind of again, and not to go through every single detail, but I took her to the clinic, right up, without even testing her, they told her, you've got COVID.
Gosh, wow.
Like I had been, because I know that it's an industry, it's a death industry. I know that they get a lot of money for doing what they do. Again, I'm not going to turn the show into that, and here's the thing is, over the last 2 years or so, I've educated my mom on all of it. And she was a medical professional for 60 years.
Wow.
So
gosh, yeah.
not just a kind of average citizen. She knows the medical terminology. She understands all of that. And so she did not get vaccinated. And so she was sick. They said this, that, and, you know, get to the emergency room. We got in there, and I'm actually scared now, because I'm thinking, like, not about her health, because I thought I just believed she was going to get over it. Like it was some kind of a flu type thing or something. And then now you're in the hospital and you've got this, it's almost like being in a military camp in a way, where all the people are this way, and it is what it is. So we got in a room and locked us in, and all these procedures, and it just so they kept her there for about a week, and then they sent her home. And then for 2 weeks I went on medical leave from my job, where it's like a paid medical leave, where I took care of her 24/7. And that means I was up every 2 hours in the night, and there was a lot of medical equipment, cornucopia of pills, and, you know, schedules. And I was on top of it. Like I was in a profound state of exhaustion. Try to imagine getting up every 2 hours every night for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, anyway, it's so that was a precious time that we had together. And of course, there were home nurses that would come in and do various procedures, etc. And it was scary, but, you know, I just didn't think anything was going to go wrong. And this is where the arguments started happening with other people in my family about, like, she's got to get vaccinated. And I just very naively and openly just said it all, you know, like, here's all the data. And then they just came down on me with like a million bombs and machine guns, and just like verbally decimated me, like it just destroyed me with an intense anger and hatred for just telling the truth about this. And then at some point I kind of had to say, it's not even my decision. I did share this information with her. She is a nurse for 60 years. That's her choice. So, this is where we're at. And then, at some point her oxygen levels were too low. She had to be taken in to the hospital. And then it was just a spiral. And you reach a point in your mind where you're like, this is it. Like, she's not going to make it. And that's when the collapse happens. That is the most painful thing, where you're screaming at God, screaming with every atom in your body at God. No, no, make this stop, and that's it right there. That crystal moment of, desperation, total, utter humiliation in the face of reality, that you cannot choose these things, that in a sense only God decides when you go.
Yeah. And how.
Not how, or etc. So you have to kind of kneel before that truth, and it's the most humbling thing that will ever happen to you. And so then there's this kind of survival mindset that kicks in, where, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get through this? Because not only do I have to go through this, and I have the legal responsibility to be the one to sign the papers and take her off the oxygen machines and these things. But while I'm doing that, my family is all attacking me. Can you imagine that?
No, I can't. See,
that's the extraordinarily different thing about my experience, and I'd say the average experience that people go through, because people are going through this right now. They go through this every day, but it's not televised. It's not, it's sort of shut up in their hearts, and because it's too painful to relive and talk about. So coming to that point, then suddenly there's this whirlwind of like legal issues and financial issues, and you quickly kind of see who your true family is and who isn't. And then there comes that time where the doctor calls, and this is really it. And so I had to take my son out of school, and a kind of an emergency situation, go into the hospital. And then, some of our relatives had to sort of do it through through the telephone Zoom app and that kind of thing, where they could be there because, they have health issues. I have a relative who is only on 20% of his heart right now after 3 vaccines and a booster. And, these kinds of
wow.
Yeah, exactly. And so being in that moment and knowing, like, you think about these things, like, if I were in this situation, what would I say? What would I do? And you pray you never have to be in that situation. And then it comes, and it's real. It's as real as it gets. So it's really more shocking than anything else. It's that you don't have your lines rehearsed. You're just in intense shock, and you can't believe that it's real. Seeing her in that state, the staff at this hospital treated her like meat. They were all people of color. She had marks on her body that showed that she was treated just like a piece of junk, and just sort of thrown in a bed. And like, it's that hard hospital where old people come in with COVID and they just let them die. And it's just like a conveyor belt where they just come through and they just let them die. And all the staff are talking and laughing while we're going through this. So this is another dimension of the experience as well. And so my mom was on a deep sedative to kind of put her to sleep, and so she couldn't suffer. And of course, the tubes and the oxygen, very hard thing to see. And my relatives are screaming and crying and, trying to talk to her. And suddenly I noticed that she's jerking, and she can't really move, but she's showing us, I hear you. I can hear you. I understand what you're saying. And when someone is in that kind of coma type state where they drug you, she wasn't obviously in a coma because she was conscious. They kind of glue your eyes shut. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that medically. It's just a normal procedure for this kind of state. And you could see tears welling up under the glue. So she knew it was her time. She knew she was going to die. And we were there, you know. So I tried to make it as easy for her as I could, in the sense that just gave her a lot of love and said that it's okay, you know, that kind of thing, touching her, holding her. And it's strange how when you hit that line, you basically say, okay, I'm going to calm down and I'm going to be the person I need to be for this person now.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I had to let her go, and you know, to watch her body turn gray and to watch her lips turn purple and to hear the last breath come out of her body it changes you, you know, it changes you. So
were your family with you at the time?
Yeah. And one of them came up to me and whispered in my ear, "We all know this is your fault."
No.
So try living with that for the rest of your life. You know, that's what I'm carrying.
Well,
And
you know that's not true. And I know I'm not taking away the weight and the burden of being told that by a relative, but you know in your heart of hearts that's not true.
It's surreal to the point where it breaks reality. And like for me, reality is totally broken.
Yeah.
It's absolutely broken. When the holidays come, nobody calls to check up on me. Nobody talks to me anymore. I was in a store after my mom passed, and I saw one of my aunts. She looked at me and then looked away, like I don't know who you are. And I mean, this is the I can't even really go there. I don't even know what to say about that. But the takeaway is that the globalist propaganda machine works, and it works very, very well.
Yeah.
It works very well to destroy us even in our spiritual sense in some ways. So like to create this division among my family, profound, and I've said, like, you are my family, and I have some select friends around here that they are my family. I have political groups locally that I work together with and play with and such. They are my family, and it is what it is. It's these are the people that came up, stepped up when I needed the help, so we really, I just kind of need everybody out there to feel like my big bear hug around you, like you matter, like, profoundly, and don't take this lightly. This community is not a hobby. It isn't. It's not something that we do to pass the time or something like this. It's critically important to all of us. So, but again, like, okay, what's the takeaway? What is the lesson? And again, it's that understanding in a very true way that life is impermanent. We are impermanent. This is a kind of a narrative, and this is where the power of the arts is transcendent. Is that, we are living our own movie in a sense. You are the star of the movie playing in your head, as one of the lines in my songs. And we can joke about that, and we can talk about ego and all these things, but actually not. That's you're a spiritual being in a material war, in the third dimension here in this plane. And so we I think that it's critical that we remind ourselves frequently of that, and try to watch out for our spiritual health. You know what I'm saying? And we talk about various forms of health and things, but I don't think we talk about spiritual health. I think mainly because it's a pretty personal topic. It's it's touchy, and we're trying to shoot for unity. We want to be more unified, and so that becomes difficult. But It's critical though. I feel like, people can talk about it in some way. We can create a platform or a structure in which to talk about these things. But
And
yeah,
this is a spiritual battle.
for real, literally. I mean, our anyway. There's enough information out there.
That's another stream on
Yeah,
its own.
yeah. So the day that, rather the nighttime of that, when my mom died, in the nighttime, my whole family all got together to have a family, get together to kind of mourn together and, help each other out through this experience. But I was told I can't come because I'm not vaccinated. So
Wow.
I stayed at home alone that evening, and I was on the phone with a really, really, really close friend who's in our sphere. She's a extremely spiritual, evolved person, and like really based in our sphere. And we're close friends, so I'm on the phone alone with her. I don't know how many people I've told this or where I've told it on, if I've said this on any shows or anything, but I'm just going to repeat it now. So I had the TV on in the other room for just some background music, and it just suddenly went off. And that's never happened before. I thought that was pretty weird. Like, is there some electrical problems? Is all lights in the house going to go out? What's going on? And then my mom's birthday balloons happened to be there, and they were swaying back and forth, like energetically, like they just weirdly. Why? There's no wind in my living room. Why are they swaying back and forth? So I just instinctively said out loud, "Mom, is that you?" And then the light next to the TV went on. And then I says, "Oh my God, Mom, I love you." And then the light went off.
Wow.
And
That's giving
then,
me goosebumps.
yeah. And this particular light, it's one of these lights that you have to tap it to turn it on. It doesn't have a switch. So, and there's like off, low, medium, and high. And it was going from high to off to medium to low to high. It was, you can't do that. It's not how that works. And for the next minute or so, I was just talking to my mom, and the light kept switching different,
Wow.
like going from these different settings, it kind of in response. And I can't even describe to you, because I hate, in a sense, telling this story, because I know that people are rolling their eyes out there and saying, "Oh, that's so sad that you believe that is your mom."
Yeah.
It's very condescending. But the thing is, there were many more experiences since then. That my son and I were having Easter dinner together, and of course, mom's absence is like profound. Like the silence is deafening kind of situation. And we sat down, and we're gonna, say a prayer and eat. And of course, we're talking about mom. And there's like a little wind chime on the inside of the dining room, next to the window. And suddenly, it just started jingling. And so again, that I'm in my dining room. There's no wind in there. There's no reason that the wind chime would just start jingling. And it was one of hers. So like things like that. Other things, but I suffice to say that there's just been a lot of communication going on. So, and that for me is beautiful. It makes me joyful and happy. And so it occurred to me, okay, I'm going to say good morning and good night to her. I'm going to tell her how my day was. You figure if someone's spirit is present among you, because they love you, that's your child or your husband or wife, or someone close to you in your family, and you pass, you're going to want to be near them. There's a still attachment there. And, it would be rude not to talk to them. That's kind of hard. And since she's made it clear that she's here, I leave out, I have kind of like a little altar to her, and I have her little, blueberry brandy or blackberry brandy that she likes, and special flowers, and a little, some kind of like perfume and things for her. And I kind of mentally hug her at night. And I mean, somebody's going to say that's a cope, but I can't really explain to you how intuitively real this is to me, and how healing and beautiful it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if other people do this, or I didn't read this in a book. You're supposed to do this. It's just what I'm doing, and it is helping. It's so when you start to see through the veil of this material world, that's when profound spiritual growth happens. And I'm sure there's a million ways in which that can happen. But I would advocate our people in our movement to find some form of meditation and do it daily. Prayer, of course, is meditation in a sense, but I mean, so is jogging. It depends. It's really about how you use your mind and your consciousness, and understanding the components of the mind and the components of the body and the components of the reality around you, how all these things come together in a prism that creates the illusion of reality. Which, I mean, when I say the illusion of reality, I'm saying that from like a fourth and fifth dimension perspective. In this reality, there's no questioning it's reality. You can knock on the table and that's real. So, but I'm talking about the forces behind that determine that. Nothing ever changes. Or rather, how do I say? Nothing. How do I put this? The only constant is change, kind of thing like this. And we can talk about it on a quantum physics level, blah blah blah. We just don't live in that frame of mind. We don't understand that reality, but our very bodies are that reality. And we not only do we have to let go of the people we love, we have to let go of our own bodies. And so taking some time to actually contemplate your own death. And then that's a scary thing most people don't want to do. And then to really start to actually research that. There's of course a biological process, but what happens after that? Who are the sort of the kind of the astronauts that have gone beyond and come back that we can listen to and learn from? And you've got like Tibetan yogis who can tell you all about it, and then you've got people on YouTube who said, oh, I died in a car accident and all these things happened, and then I came back into my body. And there's probably thousands and thousands of interviews of people like that. I don't know, I just think that most of us, we're avoiding that subject. We're avoiding that topic. And it's absurd. I mean, think of it in a sense like you're going to have a baby. You wouldn't avoid preparing for the day that it's born. Why would you avoid the day that you die?
Yeah.
So I'm just totally hogging the microphone here.
No, please do. I this is for you, well, and the audience really, because as I say, I've not experienced it. I've had my grandparents died when I was young. I think I was 8 when my last grandparent died. So family members I haven't had loss. I mean, pets, and
that's fine. It's family, I guess.
It is family, and those that haven't had pets, they don't really understand. But Luna, bless her, she's coming up to 16, and she has been literally by my side for the last 10 to 12 years. So it's I think it was, oh gosh, Von Hasch will remind me, George Carlin, I think, said, unless you get a tortoise, every pet is a heartbreak waiting to happen. So I don't have the experience of a family member, or I've relatives that have passed, but not my immediate family. So you're not hogging the mic, because that's not something I have experienced. And I'm just reading the chat. Some people, their parents are gone. Some have lost both of their parents. People have said the NHS was responsible for their parents dying because they hadn't had the proper care.
Oh boy.
And it is a subject that people avoid because it's, there's nothing we can do to avoid it. And that used to scare me as a child. I was like, but what? There's nothing I can do to avoid it? That takes our power away.
Oh, yeah, it's heavy.
We have free will. God has given us free will, but he hasn't given us the free will to live forever. And it's the one thing we have no control over. So for some people, it can be a bit powerless. But I remember talking to my mum when I was little girl, and I don't know why, but I just kept saying to her, I had like attachment issues, I guess, with my mum, and I made her promise. I said, "Don't you ever leave me. Don't you ever leave me." And as a young girl, I think to console me, she promised, and she said, "I promise." And you know, in that respect, what you're saying, she isn't going to break her promise. Her body will leave, but the spirit, and you know, I was at Catholic Mass on Sunday, the energy in the spirit, the soul doesn't. It's energy. And this might sound very weird to some people as well, but it's how I am preparing for my parents' death. It's become a bit of a family joke, so we're adding humor to it as well. But I bought a book once, and my dad said, "Oh, I really like that book," and I said, "Well, you can have it." But in the inlay on the description, I said, "Well, this is to be returned to me on your death," because I really liked the book and I wanted it back. So I put in the inlay, this is to be returned to me on your death. And you know, we have this it's a kind of ongoing joke in the house now. Me and my siblings have put our names to things in the house that we want.
Oh wow.
And if something comes in, you know, I'll say, "Mike, get the book, I want that." And so it's humorous, but it's also it's helping me prepare, because someone said, "You can't prepare for that. I can't prepare for Luna's passing. I can't prepare." You don't, because everyone experiences it so differently, and there is no right or wrong way to grieve. But what you're saying with what you're doing with your shrine, and you're saying, you know, good morning, good evening, you know, if people do experience this for the first time, just hearing that might be a comfort for them to just say, "Okay, well, I'll do that. What do I do when my parents die? What do I do? How do I cope with this?" Well, here's someone that is going through the process, and this is what he does. You might find this helpful. You might find lighting a candle helpful, because I don't know if it's our culture, but there are other cultures that, you know, they have the mourning for kind of 3 days or a week. They actually go through that process of having a mass mourning. Whereas us, it just seems very, let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it.
Well, you know, because they're afraid to talk about it. They don't want to cry in public. They don't want to, you know, lose composure. Those are totally human things, and I don't blame them for that. But at the same time, what's the word? You can't avoid it. You know, it's the most profound thing that you have to face. So here's where I'm going with it, is that this isn't our home. Okay. These are not, in a sense, our true bodies. So he said some fancy stuff. Wow. You know, but when you actually live that, you have a whole new experience of life. And like earlier, you were talking about soul energy, you know, and I think that I think that segues into another aspect of this, or another dimension of this topic, is about the health of your soul. And then, you know, a lot of times we just think about the morality and, you know, follow these rules, don't sin XYZ. But actually, there's, I think, a lot more to it. There's an energetic dimension to it, that we are like energy bodies. And this gets back into meditation and these kinds of things. What I've been recently putting together for myself in my own practice is the topic of vril. So many people in our audience should understand vril, VRIL. It's understood to be, you know, associated with certain, I guess, Germanic occult people, something, and, you know, but that's kind of just on the surface. Going back into it and looking at people who actually, you know, have like academic treatises on this or research on this, etc. They say that say, for example, prana in Hinduism is vril, for, say, the Hyperborean, and that chi in Chinese is what prana is, or ki in Japanese. And it's simply, in English, in scientific terms, you might say bioelectric energy. So that's true to a limited scientific scope. and it exists in our bodies, but it also exists in food and air and water and the earth and the wind, the trees, and it's actually everywhere. And it's in a sense how the quantum field intersects with the third dimension in which we live. And so me talking like this is me kind of hashing it out, and I'm really just kind of talking to myself, but you guys can listen. Yeah. And so in my life studies, years ago, I was the victim of a home invasion, and I went and started learning martial arts as a result of that. So, and then through martial arts, I discovered philosophy and the practice of Qigong in Chinese Kung Fu, which is, again, like if I say the word gravity in 5 different languages, it might sound, ooh, that's fancy. Wow.
Yeah.
It's like some Sanskrit word, ooh, hippy dippy and something, but it's just a word. And so you have to throw out that packaging stuff. So, life energy is there's or vril energy. There's something much, 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 much more to that energy. And it's part of your soul journey, if you will. And if you can learn meditation in which you can exercise and move this energy around your body, outside your body, and beyond, it shows you a whole other reality. But if you're limited to the scope of, I live in a physical body in a physical world, and that's it, then you'll never come to know your true self. You'll never come to know your spiritual, your soul energy, and how that can be harnessed for your life and beyond. And this is a kind of a thing that in the long term, before I die, I would like to figure out a way to harness this and for the movement, and see how could all of us use our soul energy to manifest the reality that we want, that we desire, that we need, of course, which is taking back our homelands, etc. And I'd probably say I'm maybe the first person in the movement to actually come up with this idea or bring up this idea. It's not like it's totally unique, because their soul energy can be used for black magic. And I think that we see that in Kabbalah and some of those that side of things. That can, if you're strictly coming from an egocentric perspective of reality, then that's how you would use that power. So, I'm either committing like social suicide by talking about these things, or people are going to click and go, he's onto something. Let's investigate this. Let's take this somewhere. So anyway, I don't know if again, maybe I'll just pass the mic back to you.
Well, it's interesting because, and I talk to my dear friend about this, the consciousness, we don't know about consciousness. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't it be, I dream of the day, and we do have ancestral, what's the word? Oh, how ironic that amnesia.
Oh, wow.
And, looking back, I'm going to Egypt now. I saw a program about Egypt, and there are certain things in Egypt, certain vases, certain artifacts that today only a laser could make. Now, whether they've had lasers in ancient Egypt, who knows? But we just don't know. So we've got this ancestral amnesia, and we are becoming dumber and dumber and dumber. And they are doing studies that our IQ level is dropping with each generation, and especially with this whole COVID issue, children now coming into nurseries, play schools, primary schools, they're 2 or 3 years behind because they haven't had the social interaction. They haven't been reading people's faces.
Right.
They haven't developed. So this thing that we're living within is damaging on so many levels, and it is a generational thing. It is a generational thing. And so with what you're saying, let me just read this. What Rory's he's just tagged me. I've always respected the Catholic wake ceremony where family and friends can view the body and pay last respects prior to the funeral. I've never seen a dead body. I've never been in contact with one, never seen one. I've never been to the kind of resting chapel of rest where you can go. So again, that's not something I've experienced, and that's the Catholic wake. But yeah, this soul energy, and obviously I'm moving more into Catholicism, so it's very much, you know, the bishop was speaking on Sunday, and he said, when we die, it's the body leaving. And I do find there are very, very many connecting factors between certain parts of Eastern philosophy, certain parts of Western religion, with the soul, with the energy, where we go. I mean, obviously I can't remember the word, what happens after death, that obviously differs from Buddhism to Hinduism to Christianity, but we are energy. And we don't just, you know, the body goes.
Yeah.
And someone else just, it's only the shell that's left.
Yeah.
The spirit is gone. It's only the shell that's left. The spirit has gone. And yeah, where does the spirit go? And wouldn't it be nice as a people, and I talked to Von Hash about this, you know, he said, wouldn't it be nice to study consciousness again? Wouldn't it be nice to study how the pyramids were made or Stonehenge? And instead, what are we having to do? At the minute, we're in survival mode. That's where we are at the minute. We're currently, our level of thought, our level of existence is right. We have to survive. We have to survive so that there is a generation to follow. So that those that built the Colosseums, our ancestors that built the Colosseums and Stonehenge and the pyramids, that doesn't die. So we have to. This is the generation of survival. But hopefully, in 100 years, 200 years, those that come before, those that come after us, they can get back to studying. Okay, well, what is consciousness? Let's study the mind. Let's study the body. Let's study the emotions. Let's study, and we'll get back to, you know, experiencing the beauty of human existence.
I should say also that this kind of soul energy health practice of meditation and energetic development is something that would help give our movement some roots, in a sense, that it would root us through the storm that's coming. I mean, we're in an environment where we're chemically transformed through our food and through the air and the various things that are around us. Meanwhile, there's a media propaganda that is, you know, all the sort of the LGBT type thing, all the various things that we're surrounded by that are you know, separating us from our families and our history. And there's so much going on that we have to have real roots in spirituality of I guess some kind. Of course, I have my own ideas on that, but without those roots, we're not going to make it through this storm. And so many people have not made it through the storm. Anyone who's in Antifa is clearly an example of that. These are people that hate the establishment. They hate their history. They hate their identity. They hate us, on and on and on. And they're in a sense warped and mutated people.
They just hate. They just hate. They've lost love and God.
They're weaponized misfits, in a sense. And atheism is at the core of that. So that's an example. And I mean, a lot of these people are white, you know, so can they be saved? I don't know. But at this point, I'm kind of only looking to save us, like the movement, because we're really in the storm now. Like we're in it, and destruction is coming, greater destruction. War is coming. Growing your own food is something that you have to start doing. I've just invested almost $2,000 in various equipment and things to start going off grid, and it is where it is. And there's just hard truths that we have to face about survival. But at the same time, if we ignore our own spiritual center, our spiritual grounding, And when I say spiritual, I totally don't mean religious. And not in any way am I speaking about religion. It's weird. It's like saying the sky is blue. The sky is blue. Like, why? We are spiritual beings. We can't. Just the word spiritual is so hackneyed and annoying. It's like I don't want to use that word. But for lack of a better word, let's say energetic health. Or our soul energy.
Yeah.
I love that term, soul energy. That's powerful. And it also puts the responsibility square on you. Like you, and you, that no one else can live your life and only you have to die your death. So take responsibility now. Get real about that. Everyone's in their own way. They've got their own narrative, their own history, karma, lineage, all, but whatever it is, don't put that way down on the bottom of your priority list. Make that central to the movement, that our soul energy is powerful and rooted in the laws of nature and therefore cannot be broken. You see what I'm saying? Because every single thing about the left is anti-natural.
Yeah.
It's all dialectical magic. It's black magic through dialectic, creating a false, warped perception of reality by changing the definition of things. And to me, I cannot believe how stupid people can be to buy that stuff. That's like, how could you fall for that? But it works, and it works. And so language has its own kind of technology that fits into this. But it can be used for positive, like I said, like chanting, prayer, even in a manifestation, they talk about positive affirmations. Language is a part of our psycho-spiritual technology, and we need to be harnessing it more for our personal benefits. If each one of us is a Superman and a Superwoman within the movement, our power will grow exponentially. But each one of us has to take that on. And so there's a level of like, okay, I'm gonna monitor how much toxic media I consume today. Like I'm only gonna scroll so much, or I'm only gonna shitpost so much, and then I'm gonna like intentionally snap myself off of that and then focus on something healthy, and health could, again, just being like getting your house in order or something, getting good sleep, eat more raw foods. Think about what are you putting in your body? What did you expect to get out of that? Moderate alcohol and these kinds of things, etc. I mean, I'm not like some guru giving you advice. These are common sense things. But the main point, though, is to put your soul ahead of your body and say, this isn't my physical narrative of Joe Schmo living in Cambridge or something. I'm a spirit inhabiting a body. This body will pass away and decay. I have my mother's ashes in the living room, and I don't at all look at her. That's not her. That's just a pretty vase with some ashes in it. It's some people would feel like, oh, that's morbid. And I've had relatives say like, oh, where are you going to put her? And I'm like, don't talk like that's not her. Okay. That is not her. I mean, I see more of her in photographs of her than in some ashes, but think of the undeniable reality of that, you see? And so why are we playing these roles? Why are we acting out like clowns in a circus? Why are we not living from our soul energy and responding and reacting and responding to each other in this kind of way? How would it change the nature of the movement? How would it change the people who don't know us and are looking in at the movement? It's a completely different paradigm, a completely new way of looking. And I love people like good. I have some very, very, very close friends that are Catholic, and they're true Catholics. They're really, really deeply involved on both a spiritual and like an academic level. They know, and they're like, it's got all the stuff I need. And I'm like, God bless you. All right, so I'm not God. I'm not your God. I'm not your judge. I love you, and I hope, pray for you, and I'll watch you. I'll learn from you, and then, but again, I have to live my life. I have to die my death, and pretending to be you isn't the fucking way. You see what I'm saying? Like, we have to take total control, total accountability for ourselves, and so there's something to say here about mental hygiene. So what is the mind? If you start breaking down all the parts, right? If you wanted to learn how to build a car, right, you'd have to take it apart, put it back together, and this part does this part does that. What are the mechanisms of the brain and the mind? How does it function? So that's the starting point from which you can gain control over the very organ in your body that is kind of causing you a lot of trouble and creating negative karma, negative manifestation, blah blah blah, however, whatever words you want to use for it. It's how what's the function of our emotions in this? Emotions are just as valid as intellect, but how do we balance them? How can we feel emotions that help us and empower us, rather than confuse us and twist us and make us sick inside and physically and mentally? And then, of course, that kind of person is easily weaponized into the left, right? So that's actually the fulcrum of everything, right? Is what are we doing to understand our minds and our souls in this personal kind of narrative of your life? And forget about everyone around you. There's just put all that judging eyes on yourself. So from there, you can. My advice to you from my path and my lifelong study of this is to attain equanimity, is to see the balance of all things, so that in a sense you create stillness. When I right now I've got two really, really good sparring partners. Every Monday and Wednesday I go to these different places and I spar with these like really high level kung fu guys. One guy runs a school, and when we're in the middle, man, we're going, punches and kicks are flying. How do I do it? How do I stay in there? How do you stay in the crucible for a sustained period of time? By having stillness. You are the eye of the storm. Let the consciousness be pure. Let it be. Open your mind's eye, if you will, and let the body follow. See, because the body is just the puppet of your mind. So once you attain equanimity, you can have punches and kicks flying at you and have a smile on your face and be loving to the person who's trying to attack you. So how do we take that type of ability and then enlarge it to the movement? That's a heavy question. That's the kind of thing I'm trying to figure out now. So again, I'm just blasting in all directions.
No, it's good. It's good. And people, someone's just said, really loving the stream. So it's interesting. We talk, the physical is so easy to see.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was at school and I was having counseling, and they said, if you have a broken arm, people can physically see, like, physically there's something, wrong, you've broken your arm or something. But if there's any mental illness has so much stigma to it, but we get physically ill, we get a cold, we get hay fever. That's a physical illness. It's we can have a mental illness. We can have times of like grief is a mental illness, suffering, depression, all these, hormone changes in women.
Yeah.
And we are built up of so much more than the physical. So to have these deeper conversations, and as you know, I went to India in 2017, and I was very much not lost, but it was interesting because it was conversations and things I hadn't really thought about. Like, we think of the physical body, there's an emotional body, there's a mental body, there's the spiritual body, there's the higher spiritual level. And it was fascinating to me. And now that I've come back to England and I've done my Eastern travels, and now I've come back to England and really found I'm really leaning towards Catholicism, because what we talk about with this spirituality and its faith and its belief, and we are not going to, this is my opinion, and I know this differs from everyone, but I don't think we're going to get out of this without God's help.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
really don't. I don't think we are. And so my practice is prayer. I'm doing that daily. And yes, you can take care of your body, like you said. Go sparring, eat well. Someone said they eat raw vegetables, raw fruit. Physically take care of yourself, and mentally read books, train your mind, train your brain. And I'm doing a piece at the moment about education and how we are not taught how to learn. We are taught what to learn, and we're taught what to think. So
yes.
Our brains, we only use a very, 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 very small percentage of our brain anyway. And that, if they have their way, that piece of our brain that we do use will just become smaller, because we've already got predictive text on the phones. Calculators do all the maths for us. And it's like, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's that long old adage: if you don't use it, you lose it. So physically we need to be strong, mentally we need to be strong, we need to be reading, educating, and spiritually we really do need to have a spiritual connection.
Yeah, 100%. And what I'm talking about regarding developing stillness, developing equanimity, is rocket fuel for any spiritual practice. It's not in itself a religion, right? It's not in itself a kind of like a moral structure, a list of laws to follow, or special holidays, or da 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 da. It's literally just the purity of your mind, and you have to go there, and you'll find that it's actually one of the hardest things you could ever do, is to try to sit for 60 seconds without any thoughts. And if you can do that, go for 2 minutes, and then 5, and then 10, and on and on. And there's methodologies you can use to cultivate stillness. There's lots of stuff out there you can research, and you find what works for you. But once you become that, it's no longer a thing like, I should do this, but you actually embody it and you have the skill of it, then your spiritual practice is actually far more easy. It's not as much struggle, and you'll see huge leaps forward. So without equanimity, it's kind of like, best analogy I can use is kind of like rocket fuel, in the sense of like, I'm trying to connect what I'm saying with other people's religious practices. So because I guess in a lot of times we sort of think of religion in a container, in a sense that, like, it's easy to be kind of pious when you're in a church. It just, the energy's there, it's beautiful, you're mentally, physically attuned to that beautiful vibration, or whatever you want to call it. You're in the zone, if you will. When you are riding in rush hour traffic, or you're at your job, or you're at a bar, all these other mundane things, that's where it matters. You see where I'm going? I'm not saying it doesn't matter in church, but of course I'm saying, like, life itself. What is this narrative? Every day is a page in the book of your life. And if you go back and look at all those pages, are you really going to want to read that? Is it just garbage upon garbage, and frustrations and neurosis, and this person did that to me? And how, with equanimity and stillness, you have a kind of aerial perspective of your life. Not literally, but your soul, in a sense, stands outside your body and watches. And then from there, you don't have these knee-jerk reactions. You maybe can see beyond the frame and the scope of what you think or the things you've been taught, etc. And then your perspective of other people is that they're really just confused children, and they become extremely transparent, and they you see their ego structures extremely clearly, and then you're not judging them, you're just understanding them, and you're saying, what does this person need right now? Okay, they need reassurance, they need validation, they need tough love, they need guidance, they need comfort, uh, they need to be alone, they need XYZ PDQ. You fill it in. But if you don't have the equanimity and the stillness of mind and to see that, how can you behave spiritually and fill out another page of that wonderful narrative that is your life? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I was just about to say something with that thread, and it's completely gone.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, no, it's something. Oh, it might come back to me. Well, yeah, it's because I'm really. I stopped. I guess anything that I put, spiritual, let's say in inverted commas. I ceased my practices. One, when I found nationalism, but I did have a really, really big change in life, in my perspective and everything.
Yeah.
I found meditation for me hugely helpful and medicinal.
Yes.
And I've always prayed. I've always connected with God. I remember being young in my bed, praying to God at nighttime, asking for help, but also thanking. And I've just always had God around me.
Good, very good.
And although I do suffer, especially coming back to England, my mental health, my mental strength has really, really depleted. I don't get black-pilled, but I do find that my practice of prayer, my practice of faith, my practice of belief, it gets me by. It's a comfort. And everyone said, God, you're so smiley all the time. Well, not all the time, as some people contest, but it is a strength. And there's a wonderful passage in the Bible. I don't know if you know this. It's Ephesians, the armor of God.
Okay. I'm aware of it.
And it's, I don't want to, I'll paraphrase it terribly, so I don't want to, but it's basically, wear the armor of God, put on the belt of truth, have the shield of, and it's like, yes, we are warriors in this battle. And like you said at the beginning of the stream, we here are the warriors of our kind, of our people, because we see and we know.
Yes.
And everyone does have their own way. And I know there are pagans in the movement. I don't know if there's any druids, but I knew druids back in Ibiza. And so we're all warriors and we're all soldiers. And I think to literally wear that shield of God and the armor of God and the truth and the honor and the courage, it's what gets us by.
Yeah.
And us as a people, we want to survive.
Yeah.
And it is, although we're talking about, when the body leaves, the spirit and the soul is eternal, but we can make our people eternal.
That's a beautiful thing to say. There's a lot of things I want to respond to. Understanding the true meaning of the armor of God is something I'm going to start digging into more. And I would really, really appreciate it if my Christian friends could reach out to me and give me what their interpretations are and help me to take ownership of that more. My understanding, of course, is literally it's just, God's protecting us because we're his children, among these demons. But I guess, especially as a martial artist, I think, just having armor is not enough. I have to have a strategy to go into that too. That's another topic. But I want to respond to my friend Slots put a comment in the chat about the ability to detach and view from the third person, and how he feared it would disconnect him from everyday life and such. So this is a linguistic problem that a lot of people immediately have when they hear about this kind of like equanimity, stillness, especially associated with Zen Buddhism and Eastern thought, is that there's this sense of, it's quote detachment, and that word is used in like English books on Buddhism, etc. And it's this like, oh well, that's just nihilism, or it's a deadening of the soul or the spirit, blah blah blah, and it's actually weakening our movement, that we should reject that. And if that were true, I would agree with it, because we cannot deaden ourselves. We cannot be, so detached that like, whatever, man, go with the flow. Like, there's no labels, dude. That garbage, like, cop out mentality.
Platitudes.
That a better way to describe stillness or equanimity is to be in a state of pure potential. A state of pure potential. Okay, so that means at any minute, anything can arise according to what is needed. And so there's a mental, emotional dimension to that. When I was discussing like in a state of equanimity, I'm dealing with my ex-wife who's yelling at me, and I'm like, okay, what does she need? Now, years ago I would freak out and get in the fight, but when you acquire equanimity, you are not these, I don't know how to describe it. In a sense, it's like you become sort of transparent, and the arrows just fly through you, and you don't feel them. You're not attached to any of that pain. You don't have, in a sense, you recognize it, but you don't feel it in the sense that it throws you out of your center and and blah blah blah. So you're not in the mundane world, you're in the spiritual world. And so from there still is the context. And sure, every great spiritual leader is kind of, and if we lose equanimity, we lose touch with God. We enter the ego world, the world of anger and hatred. And that's just that'll trip us up. That's not gonna work for us. We can't come from there. I do feel like hatred, in a sense, it's an emotion like any other, in terms of it has a natural purpose, that it's in some way maybe meant to help us identify threats and to not allow negative patterns from others against us. But it is also, in a sense, like desire. You indulge in it too much and it'll rot you out. You can't and again, that's what equanimity is. If your mind is in balance, then you're going to observe the hatred. You're not going to deny it, but you're not going to be a slave to it. And so, because I feel like for example, the left has this whole choose love, and oh, stop, we have to stop hatred, It's like, you're being hateful in doing that. You're hating yourself, you're hating whites, you're hating Western civilization, and you're just lying, because your spirituality is infantile. So once again, I'm just kind of pointing back to, this kind of fulcrum of spirituality within the movement, and that's that equanimity. I don't know if I'm hogging the mic here a bit. But,
no, not at all. Well, I did actually have the emotion of anger. I don't know if it was taught out of me or trained out of me or encouraged out of me. So anger is a feeling I didn't have for a long time. But seeing what's happening around, seeing what's happening to us as a people, having a justified anger at what's going on is important, and it's healthy. It's how that is channeled. I know some people, they do go into the black pill and they feel like
it's defeating.
They feel like, they feel like, well, we've lost. What's the point? And again, this is where I come back to my faith. This is where I come back to, and it's not. I don't want this to seem as a cope. And some people would look at me and say, "Oh, you're very naive. You're very this. You're very that." But It's not. We are now in God's battle. If you believe that or if you don't believe that, we just have to see the hell we're living in, with the filth they're pushing on children, with the degeneracy they're pushing on children.
Yeah.
It has become hell on earth. And so
Yeah.
I truly, not everyone shares this belief, and I'm open to that. It's not, this isn't me preaching. This isn't me saying this is how it is. This is where I'm coming from with this. So go on.
Oh no, I'm feeling like we should use the term controlled anger. That we can harness anger, and we should, and it's just a natural thing, but we can't. It's not like we're riding a wild horse either. You know what I mean? There has to be control of it, and we're justified. We're righteous. This is righteous anger, but the huge component to this is courage, and so that, I think, is the difference between whites like ourselves, who are advocating for our freedom and sovereignty, etc., versus kind of normie whites that know the truth but can't speak it, don't want to get involved, blah blah blah. Is that we have the courage, and through our courage, and in a sense, that's a kind of leadership, they can follow. And I think that there's like people like Yiz and Jason Kuna and White Art Collective, and all these wonderful people in our sphere are boldly leading forward positively, and that's awesome. And then you've got the Patriot Front guys that are out there. You've got Patriotic Alternative is out there. You've got people that are handling things more sort of in a public political way. That takes courage. You see what I'm saying? So like, there's many manifestations in which we can express our ideas and work towards our goals, our common goals, however different we might be in our different spheres. But ultimately it boils down to the whole world is we're facing a Goliath here, and it's this kind of monster, and we're standing alone with a slingshot. It's like, let's get a bunch of us together and use our numbers and use our minds and our hearts, and it's so I don't know. I guess all of this kind of ties back into the theme of like, life it's a narrative. It's a heroic narrative, and the arts is the mirror of that. So it plays a critical role in us seeing ourselves as the hero of our own stories. So let's obviously keep embarking on this, keep sharing it, keep growing, but in a sense, be the author of that story. Be the author of your own story. That's really, in a sense, all that you've got. I mean, if you can master yourself and your life to the point where you are, we would want to make a statue of you after you passed, and always remember the great things that you did, and that, generations to come would look back on you and say, because of his courage or her courage, and the things that person got through with equanimity of mind and compassion, that like this, we wouldn't be here today. You know what I'm saying? So
what's the saying? If you can keep your mind when everyone else about you is losing theirs or something, and you said it's like being the eye of the storm or the calm of the storm, and to be grounded and rooted. And I have lost a lot of that since I've come back, coming, as I spoke to in the beginning, I'm now living in London of all places. So I'm literally in the thick of it. And so I have got, like I say, I'm building my prayer practice every day. I'm changing what I'm eating. And it is, there's this old saying, it's all in the mind. It's all in the mind.
Yeah.
So, and I just wanted to touch on what you were saying, because with the creativity, I've been doing so much activism IRL behind the scenes, but I really feel now more so than ever, my true activism is in my music. That's what God has blessed me with and gifted me with. And I know you're a creator as well. And so it's, I don't know if you know the saying, I believe it was, oh, my brain, the the artist is the antenna of the race.
Wow, that's heavy.
And
simple,
yeah, and so to feel so intently, and to thank you. I knew it'd remind me. Ezra Pound had that quote: the artist is the antenna of the race.
Nice.
So it's so, how powerful is that?
Yeah, it shows us the level of responsibility that we have too, which is pretty high, right? So in order to aspire to that, what must we do to make ourselves strong and pure, that we can channel the message, that we can channel our the pain and the beauty of our race in this time specifically. I don't believe that we're going to lose, but I do believe we have some of the biggest fights ahead of us. You know, there's some of the biggest challenges. We're literally in it right now. It's already started. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's, you know, that this is kind of the daily, even moment to moment realization is kind of saying, who am I? And, you know, and how am I living my life? So, you know, this is sort of the takeaway of that muse on death and what it means to us. So I hope in some kind of way that my suffering will inspire people in our movement in some positive way, that they can see this and then maybe in some way figure out, okay, how am I living? What do I need to do? What do I need to change? How can I root myself more deeply in a spiritual experience? And how can that help the people around me? It's funny because you've got there's a certain kind of a Chad masculine culture within our total culture in the white sphere. And a lot of that is like, you know, tough guy stuff, you know, like, you don't cry on a live stream, you know, or whatever, you know. And that's all good and well. I actually love that. I think it's a fun culture. But inside there too is the kind of like the weeping Apu or the weeping Pepe, and there's, you know, we're suffering together as well. And through that commiseration, our love for each other grows, our friendship grows, and it's so profound. I just had a meeting with some political friends recently, not a meeting, you know, just like hanging out at a bar kind of thing, eating and drinking. And you know, the fact that they know what we all know and that we're all completely plugged in on the same page, you know, regardless of how long I've known them or whatever, these are actually, in a sense, these are the guys that I fought wars with in many past lifetimes. These were the guys on the battlefield that I picked them up and I carried their bodies to their families.
Wow.
These are the same souls that helped me out when I was struggling and I needed food and water and medicine, and we laughed and we cried and we lived and we died together. And now we've come back for this glorious battle, this glorious battle to save the white race in the face of the greatest genocide in history. You know, it's not even just white people, obviously, that are, you know, being genocided. It's has there ever been any time in human history that has like globally touched, you know, so many people?
No, I don't think so.
The re-engineering humanity.
Yeah. And I heard, and it felt poetic when I heard this, and it was years ago, and it was in Ibiza, and you know, I was very much in that kind of left sphere at the time. But someone said to me, this was way back, way before COVID, and they'd said, you know, this is what they were saying: every soul that's ever incarnated before is here on Earth for this time, because we all feel it. We all feel it, and like you say, it's global, it's worldwide, and you know, we've got the internet. So
Yeah, exactly.
that is connecting everyone
Right.
instantly. We are coming to an end. First of all, I just want to really thank you, because I know from speaking privately with you, and obviously when your mother did pass, I felt with you what you're going through, and I really want to thank you for coming on and being so open about it, and with it being still very raw.
Yeah.
And just reading some of the comments that were coming through, and people were sharing about their parents or their families, and I just want to thank you for coming on and doing that.
Well, I've been in a kind of a, I don't know, it's sort of a dark zone here, offline. I used to produce, 2 to 3 shows a week, and I was just excited. It was so exciting, and all kinds of projects and art and music, and I miss being in that. I'm not, in a sense, trying to drop out. I don't have a choice at this time. I am working towards trying to get back into the field and producing content. I've got a couple interviews lined up. I'm in a really hard spot to make content, and so you're asking me to come on, sort of pushed all that aside and like allowed me to come back into our sphere and say something. But I was also really worried about this becoming a big pity party. I don't want people's pity. I don't want to be a downer. I'm not.
No, it's not come across that way at all.
I'm really worried about that. I really genuinely don't want people to feel like, oh, why should I listen to this?
Yeah.
So I kind of, it took me some time to figure out how am I going to talk about this, because it's just so much pain, like intense agony and real agony, prolonged agony. So I'm still transforming and changing, and I hope that I'll become a stronger, better person to serve us in the movement.
I'm sure you will be. And like I said to you months ago, your art will definitely share that.
Well, there's so much more art to make. It's all in sketch pads and in my head and in my guitar and all this. But it's coming. I'm just very grateful for the freelance work and for the people I'm working with. That at least I'm still in the game doing some publishing work. I think that's critical. Making regular shows is very time consuming, and I never ever cared about, like, I want to be popular. I don't say things just to say things. I'm like, what can I do to help? And that's the only thing. If I run out of things to say, then sayonara. It's been nice.
What can we do to help? If we all just ask ourselves that, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
What can we do to help?
Yeah.
So I've tagged your YouTube channel in the description. I didn't tag your Telegram channel.
I think that the YouTube's enough, because the Telegram is extremely hot.
Yeah.
Like white hot, wink, wink. Sorry, that was a dumb joke. But anyway, like if you're that kind of person and you want to really find me, you'll be able to find me somehow.
Okay. Okay. So I have tagged your Telegram, your YouTube, sorry. I'm just going to play a song to end.
Okay.
So I'll do that, and then we'll say farewells and how people can find you, and we'll do that. So I'm just going to, I've done it again.
I'll mute myself.
Bless you. So this is, it's an old song, but it's going to be my latest release. So I just wanted to share this and basically just get people's feeling on it, because this is going to be my latest single, and it's about love, real godly love. So let me just do this.
You and me speak a universal language. Without say a word. It's amazing how much we have when all there is silence. It's there in your love. I see it in your smile. It's there in your mind. I see it in your eyes. It's a message that not everyone can understand. To some it would appear to come from a foreign land. It's the language of the earth below. It's the language of the sky above, and the language that I'm speaking of is the language of love. So speak a little louder for everyone to hear. So speak a little louder. Say it loud and clear. Sing it into the wind. May it carry over faraway fields. Sing it into the seas. And in return, may it rain down on you and me. Sing it up to the sky above. Sing out the word of love. Sing it up to the skies above. Sing out the word of love. Sing it up to the skies above. Sing out the word of love. Sing it up to the sky above. Sing out the word of love. age of love.
So that will be my next release. And I thought it was a very
beautiful,
appropriate song for the stream.
very pretty. Yeah.
So if you just want to say your farewells, obviously I know you said you're not in your creative zone, but it's there, it's coming. So if you just want, however you want to say your farewells.
Well, I'm still online, kind of lurking and posting and sharing and having fun and whatnot. The YouTube channel, it's probably going to be a while. I think the earliest I'll get back to content production on my YouTube will be when I do illustrations for the next Bizarchives. If you don't know the Bizarchives, check out thebizarchives.com. It's illustrated short stories in kind of a cosmic sci-fi horror genre. Dave Martell's publishing project. It's phenomenal. Great authors from the UK, by the way. I want to tip my hat to all those guys. Big time. Yeah, I love, because I'm mostly English and I love kind of being around my UK brothers and sisters as well. So that's always awesome. So yeah, but it's going to be a while. I'm like I say, I'm still lingering around Telegram and Twitter at Amerizera. And so, yeah, feel free to reach out to me, AmericanZarathustra@gmail.com. And Jody, again, I can't thank you enough. I'm still alive. I'm still out here, doing something and trying to get back into the narrative with our cause and do good things. So thank you for giving me this platform to talk about my experience and the reflections and the value of that hopefully will stay with our people and help to, help us win this war, so to speak, for our life. So God bless you, Jody.
Well, God bless you, and thank you so much for coming. So I will be back next Tuesday. And just to let people know, I do have an interview confirmed with the Bishop Williamson. I did mention that a couple of weeks ago. I'm just waiting on a day and time. It will be an afternoon stream. So for those of you that have your jobs, it won't be on a Tuesday and it won't be in the evening. So I think it will be an afternoon stream around 3:00. So I will be doing it live. So if you are able to join, you can. But if not, there'll definitely be a replay. So I just wanted to let people know about that. Will be coming up in the next few weeks. And again, thank you, Donald. Thank you to everyone that has joined, whether you're watching now or in the replay. And I just want to just say a huge thank you to everyone. And I hope this has been an inspirational discussion. It's not an easy one. It's not a fun one. It's certainly not very bubbly and joyful, but I do think it's important. So I just once again thank you, Donald, and to everyone. And I will be back next Tuesday. So from my heart to your heart, from my house to your house, stay safe, stay well, stay true, stay strong, stay sane, and I will see you next week.
Take care, everyone.